Okay, so you took a little time to think about the difference between fact, opinion, informed opinion, and bias. And if our goal is to develop an informed opinion that we can defend and support with quality evidence about any topic, then what might our topic be? And in Chapter 11 and 13 in BISI, we've already been using reader response and Socratic questioning to help us consider these topics and how they connect to or relate to our lives. And we've been using the critical thinking framework. So if you do a Google search, what impacts water quality in Pennsylvania, for example, if we're looking at water and the safety of water, that could be a good Google search question. What comes up? So go ahead and do the Google search, what impacts water quality in Pennsylvania, and let's see what comes back. So look at that. The first two big articles are about shale gas development, the impacts of shale gas, wastewater disposal, and water quality. And I happen to know that that's a really big issue in this area right now for many reasons, and so I think that may be a good place to start. So if we're looking at that as a question, and we say, what does this topic have to do with me personally, from reader response or from Socratic questioning? What do we think about this topic before we get started researching it? Where do our ideas about it come from? What are the assumptions that we have? So I'm telling you that I already have a little background knowledge in this area because it's such an important one for our community to think about. So I've been thinking about it for a while, but I think it's one that you may not have thought about yet and is a good one for us to think about, because really what's more important than the quality of our drinking water, whether it's safe and healthy for us to drink. So when we did that Google search, we found out that shale gas drilling was one of the big issues for quality of water in Pennsylvania. So this is a good question for us to explore to make this topic real for ourselves. So does drilling for shale gas, which fracking is a part of that, and we'll look at that in a minute, does it impact the quality of our water supply? Because you hear very powerful arguments on both sides. So as critical thinkers, as you're in a gen ed about environmental science and you're learning about water and energy sources, that's one source of really good information for you as an educated citizen to make this in your own and think about it in ways that impact your own life. And that's one of the goals of all of the gen ed curriculum, is to help you to become more educated and to have a more educated citizenry. So later on, after we do the research, we could also say, well, how much were my views and opinions challenged or changed by this topic, if at all? So for me, who I may come to the table with a little bit more background information, as a critical thinker, I need to stay open and say, okay, maybe my views and opinions are going to change or be challenged after I do my research, and that I'm open to that happening. So let's go forth with this question, whether this drilling for shale gas or fracking impacts the quality of our water supply. So what's behind the story of fracking? What's the significant question? Why is this an important question? We wouldn't bother if it weren't an important question.
Deposits of coal bed methane. In a frac, a hole is drilled into the ground, explosions are detonated, and fluids are pumped in to fracture the coal seam. The fracturing process may have caused methane to find its way into the water table and eventually out through Fiona's kitchen tap.
So that was a really quick video about fracking and the process of fracking. And this picture, maybe you can take a little bit more time to pause the recording and look at what actually happens in this process of fracking. So to drill, they crack the rock and they try to get the natural gas to be able to come out into the wells. And in that process, The question of how is water polluted in that process? Does the methane gas that also is down in those layers of rock, does that get out and pollute our drinking water? And that's really the big question here. So I want to start to use the CRAP test as we try to answer this question. Here's a picture of the process. So this is our first source, and we want to use the CRAP test to think about it and say, is this a reliable source? Is this a source we could use to help us answer the question? So to get started, I just want to make sure that this information about what fracking is really reliable. And I can go out to the source where I got that article, and that is actually here, treating water from hydraulic fracturing. I got that. Here is the actual diagram. And so I want to know a little bit about this. What is the CNEN? So it's the Chemical and Engineering News. That sounds good, but what is it? So I'm going to go up to the About link at the top, and usually you find that here somewhere at the top or along this under the Home tab. Sometimes you'll find About down at the bottom, and again it is there at the bottom as well. But it's saying this Chemical and Engineering News is a weekly magazine published by the American Chemical Society, and so I know that society actually is a legitimate society, and so I can say that the authority of the source of the information is probably very accurate, and but also, let me look at this a second in terms of, who's the actual author. So I can click on her name, and that brings me into, she's a senior business editor. She has a BA in environmental science from the University of Virginia, which is an excellent school, and she has her MBA from Johns Hopkins University Carey Business School, which is another excellent school. So she comes with good credentials. The journal does as well. Let's look at the purpose of this article. So much of I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, what is this article trying to do? Is it just trying to inform us? Is it trying to convince us of something? So I've read this already, and most of it is just information, is trying to inform the reader of what actually happens in this process of hydraulic fracturing. So I feel like this is probably a pretty good source for us to use. So on your handout, I want you, as we go along in this case study, we're asking, is fracking harmful to drinking water or not? Do our resources pass the CRAP test? And this link is to that very first diagram that we just looked at. And I said in this one, think about just the authority piece. Well, in reality, you're going to think about all five for every source that you're going to use. But to just again highlight some of these individual criteria, if we look at this one in terms of authority, we already talked a little bit about whether I would feel comfortable using it or not for my paper. And I said, yes, I would. And the reason why, in terms of authority, that the publisher it comes from a very good source, and I would name that source, and the author's qualified to write on the topic. So I'm looking at those bullet points on the CRAP test criteria sheet. And so in terms of authority, would I say that this article could be used in a research paper based on its authority? And I would have to say yes, and I would be able to justify that, and that's what you could write in this section on why. Okay, so as we go along trying to answer this question, whether fracking is harmful or doesn't make a difference to our drinking water, another resource comes to mind is a series of videos that I've seen on commercials on television about different families who have allowed drilling and fracking on their farmland and what that has meant to their family. And so let's take a look at this resource, and you should be deciding this time, what's the actual purpose of this particular, these are a series of videos. What's the purpose of this, and does that impact whether you would use this or not in your paper, and why?
Well,
I've been farming all my life. At one time, I farmed almost 1,000 acres. I was in grain farming, hay, corn, soybeans, oats. Right now, I have about 70 head of cattle. My theory always was if you're going to take care of 5, you might as well take care of 100. To actually hold on to the farm, I had to work construction to pay the bills. I do all the farming at night and weekend, and I come home and farm sometimes at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I probably put 7 days a week in, 16 hours a day. Being a farmer today is tough because the price of your product is probably the same as it was 40 years ago, and the price of machinery has probably quadrupled. All the farmers around here got gas wells are doing a lot better now. My wife's the boss. There she comes. Is she going to chew me out for something I said?
We met in grade school. I have a picture of us when we were in 3rd or 4th grade, and I'm sitting right beside him. Went to proms together and everything, graduated together. And then he bought the farm. His first love is his farm. I knew that before I married him, and I never forgot it. I'm number 2, and that's okay with me. Natural gas has been, I think, a godsend to this area. It has helped them see a return on all the hard work that they have put into their land and just to keep it. When I go around and I see these old barns being fixed up and farmers being able to upgrade because they've always had to farm on duct tape and baler twine.
These farmers that worked hard all their life, I think a lot of them just farming for fun now. This is our family business.
This is our whole life.
So I want you to think about this source in terms of the purpose. What's the reason for those videos? And look at, is it to inform, to teach, to sell, to persuade, to entertain? What do you notice about the video? Is it fact? Is it opinion? Is the point of view objective? Are there ideological or institutional corporate biases in that video? And if so, what do you see? And would you use this resource for a paper, and why? Does it help you? In what way might it help you to answer the question, is fracking harmful to drinking water or not? So we saw the corporate view. That was from My Range Resources, which is a drilling company that drills in the state of Pennsylvania and elsewhere in the Marcellus Shale fields of natural gas. And so here's another take on that same story from a different point of view, from a corporate point of view to another farmer's point of view in the state of Pennsylvania.
When you're talking money, your bank shouldn't be in a hurry to get...
East Pennsylvania. Bonnie and Truman Burnett built a house they planned to retire in.
We were going to move up here January this year.
But now Bonnie Burnett gets too upset to come here much anymore.
I don't want him to come here. I haven't been here since last summer because I'm afraid of the water.
In 2009, the Burnett's pond and well water were seriously contaminated by a spill from a gas well set just 400 feet from their door. Their house and pond lie right up against a neighbor's property line. That neighbor, like most here, leased his land to Chesapeake Energy for gas drilling. The drill site, called a pad, went up in 2008, just behind their little pond. In 2009, water laced with chemicals and toxins from the drilling process began to leak. The Burnetts were away, and the spill kept going.
They had the frac tanks open and they left them open. Whatever happened, told me maybe 100,000 gallons of water came down off the pad, down through the woods into my pond, washed over top of the pond, killed about a 50-foot swath through the woods, killed all the trees and all the vegetation.
The Burnett story is a cautionary tale from the natural gas boom that's now sweeping through the towns of rural Pennsylvania. A boom said to be worth billions of dollars, while adding thousands of jobs. The industry takes great pains to assure people about the environmental safety of gas drilling, and especially of hydrofracking, the breakthrough drilling technology that makes this boom possible.
It's generating clean electricity for homes and businesses. It's 50% cleaner than coal.
But cases like the Burnett's raise pressing questions. How safe is this process to the environment? To our drinking water? What about